When you look at a house, what you're really seeing is the skin of the home. But what actually makes up the bones of the house? Well, that would be the walls and the framing and the structure of the home itself. In this video, I'm going to break down how the framing works, the different types of framing, and how it all ties together to make your house a home. If you're looking for an explanation of a different system in the home, check out one of the other videos in this playlist. Or if you're just looking for a general overview, I have a nice, quick 10-minute video about the overview of the 9 different parts of the house. If you want to learn about the framing and what role it plays in the house, this is the video for you. So let's start off by talking about why the framing even matters. Well, the framing is what gives the house the structure and the layout that it does. The framing goes all the way around the exterior of the home, and it provides a structural component for the weight of the roof or the weight of a second story to be transferred down into the foundation and into the ground. Basically, it gives shape, strength, and support to the entire structure of the home. Now, if your framing is compromised, it may show up in some subtle ways. Maybe there's some cracks in the drywall, maybe there's some cracks around the windows or the doors. Maybe the windows or the doors don't line up quite right, or they're more difficult to open. All these things could be indicative of some kind of structural issue. As far as the types of framing goes, there's really only 2 types of framing that you're going to see nowadays. And those are balloon framing and platform framing. Now, balloon framing was an older construction method, which basically involves running a single stud all the way from the bottom level of the house straight up to the top where the roof sits on those studs. Now, this is much more common in older historic homes, and we do have a lot of those in Charleston. And there are some benefits and drawbacks to having this balloon style framing. One of the benefits is that it is structurally sound, and it uses a little bit less wood because it's just one straight shot from the ground floor all the way up to the roof. But one of the downsides is because you have long, elongated wall cavities that go from the floor all the way up to the roof, this could create like a chimney effect. So if there's a fire, it could spread the fire more quickly in the home. Now, the other type of framing that we use nowadays, and which is the way that we build houses now up to the International Building Code, is platform framing. In platform framing, each floor of the home is almost like its own little self-contained unit that has a floor and a ceiling of its very own. Regardless of the type of framing you have, both systems rely on joists, beams, trusses, and studs to provide support for the weight of them. As far as issues go with framing, usually there's 4 major problems that I see that are common here in the Low Country. One of those is tied to foundation issues, where the foundation is sinking in some portion of the house, which is causing the framing to shift as well, which is then resulting in a structural issue through that portion of the home. The second thing I see a lot is just crappy renovations, where someone either takes out a load-bearing wall that they were not supposed to, which causes some structural insecurity of the home, or they add in a wall that's not up to code. The third issue I see a lot is termite damage, and that kind of goes along with the fourth issue, which is wood rot. Now, the issue with termite damage and wood rot in the framing of the home is that a lot of times this is happening behind drywall or behind the walls. So you don't actually know that it's happening until the issue gets so bad that it becomes apparent even from the outside of the walls. When it comes to walls and framing, one of the biggest questions I get from clients or investor partners alike is, hey, can we take out this wall to make this an open concept floor plan? And the answer is, it really depends. Sometimes a wall is load bearing, meaning it is placed in the home in such a way that the structural weight of the house is transferred through that wall down into the foundation. If that's the case, it's called a load bearing wall. And that means if you take that wall out, your home could be structurally unstable. Now, if it's just a partition wall, then sure, you can take out that wall, no problem. Really, all a partition wall is just a wall that does not support the weight of the home, but just acts to divide off a room or a portion of the house from the rest of it. If you do want to remove a structural wall, you can do it, but you're going to need the help of a structural engineer and a licensed contractor who knows what they're doing. Typically, this is going to involve putting in a large and very sturdy structural beam to take the place of the load-bearing wall with supports on either side. So think of like a big long beam that goes across the span of the room that's supported on either side. The cost to do this can be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. It really just depends on where the wall is located in the home, how far into the framing you have to go, and how long the span of distance is that you have to cover between the load-bearing portions of that wall that you're taking out. Now let's talk about some ways to identify some issues with the framing or the structural parts of the house if you've just bought a new house that was freshly remodeled, or if you have an older home that you're getting ready to put on the market or that you need to fix up. One of the biggest signs of a structural or framing issue is going to be sagging ceilings or walls that are out of plumb, meaning they're bowed or not perfectly vertical, things along those lines. Now, it is important to note that as a home ages, it does tend to settle over time. Now, typically that's going to be settling throughout the entire house. So maybe a door jamb will rub a little bit, or maybe the walls won't be perfectly vertical, but maybe there's just some slight slope to the walls or the floor. And sometimes this can be okay. However, if the slope starts to get drastic, or you notice that there are long zigzagging cracks along doorways or windows, then that's something you need to get checked out. Really, one of the biggest issues that I see around Charleston is either rotted wood just from moisture intrusion or termites that have eaten away some of the framing or the structural members of the house. Now, if it comes to replacing these things and remediating these issues, the cost can vary pretty wildly as well. If it's just some simple termite damage, usually you can get it fixed for about $1,000 to $1,500, which I know doesn't sound super cheap. But the alternative is if you wait and continue to let those termites eat away at the wood and do their thing, then you're looking at possibly $10,000 to $15,000 in structural repairs instead of just a quick termite treatment. The same thing goes for a crawl space in a home where you have some rotted wooden beams. If you're just replacing a couple of rotted wooden beams, it could be around $5,000 to $6,000. But if you're looking at reinforcing the entire foundation and bolstering the structural integrity of the whole home, that could run you up to $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. This is why, in this case, just like with other foundation issues, you need to identify issues early so that you can do some preventive maintenance and get the small issues fixed before they become big issues. So let's summarize the big takeaways from this video. First, the framing is like the skeleton of your house. It's what supports the load of the roof, transfers that weight down to the foundation, and it's what gives the home its shape and its form and its function. Big issues you can see with the framing are typically here in Charleston. Those issues are going to be related to termite damage or to rotten wood, and a lot of that is just because of the hot, humid environment that we live in down here. The other thing to look out for is, particularly if you're living in a historic area, there's been a lot more time for pests and rodents and wood rot to grow and propagate through the house. So you want to make sure you get a very thorough inspection before you go through with that home purchase. Or if you already own one of these historic homes, just make sure that you're doing some ongoing maintenance and keeping on top of some of these issues so they don't grow into larger problems. So that's the down and dirty on the framing and the structural side of your house. If you want to learn about the foundation issues and what type of foundation you have, I have another video that covers foundation work. Or if you're just looking for a general overview, I have another video in this playlist that covers the general overview of the 9 different systems in a house.